Hello, I'm going to give interpretations for Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto in the first house. So, Uranus in the first house using the equal house system. If you have Uranus in the first house using the equal house system, you have a need to redefine yourself whenever you want. With Uranus in the first house, with equal houses, there is a sensitivity to feeling controlled by other people, to feeling like other people have expectations of you, and those expectations will go far, far into the future, and this leaves you, in a sense, stuck. So with Uranus in the first house, the person is stepping into life with a sense of freedom, with a sense of every day and every moment being new, and not being responsible to continue in exactly the same way that they have in the past. And what happens with Uranus in the first house, with the equal house system, is this change that they feel, that they need to change their style, change the way they dress, change the way they speak, change the way they live their lives, how much exercise they get, what kind of food they eat, to redefine, to relate in a new way. They may decide that they've been too indirect. They've not been speaking up, and suddenly they change. These sudden feelings that there's a need to change now, not wait, not have any excuses, you don't have to prepare anything. It happens periodically. So the person can be very consistent and very reliable for several years, and all of a sudden they decide they want to do things differently, shake things up. And if you have Uranus in the first house and you feel these sudden impulses to change the way you relate to the world, to the way you speak, to the way you carry yourself, to your presence, and you don't do it, it builds up a lot of tension and a lot of repressed, seething, we can call it anger or frustration. So you need to redefine yourself periodically. This is something that generally other people don't like. They want you to be the same, day in, day. Why are you doing this now? I thought we were going to do this. You're changing our plans. Da, da, da. I don't think I know who you are anymore. All these kinds of comments you get that kind of force you or make you feel pressured to not make the change. On the other hand, if you make these sudden changes and you are being irresponsible, you are breaking commitments, that's not good. So it's a delicate balance of being able to reinvent yourself and yet continue with whatever commitments and expectations are there and that are necessary, and to reconfigure things over time so that you feel freed up to improvise and spontaneously change your identity according to any new circumstances that develop. Now with the midheaven houses, it's very similar, but it's more connected specifically to our path in life. So instead of the emphasis on how you present yourself, what your lifestyle is, what your image is, how you reach out to people, how you carry yourself, it's more about how you reach your goals, how you can bring out the things that are within you. So let me read from the slide here. Periodically, well, that's the thing with Uranus, it's periodic. This spontaneity doesn't happen obviously and conspicuously every day. But every once in a while, there's this sudden, unexpected change. So periodically throughout your life, you find that your path in life has become too ordinary, has become a routine that lacks the spark of enthusiasm that you once had. Now, we all have those kind of feelings. We get into something, we're excited about it, then it becomes routine. Well, there's a point when a person has Uranus in the first house with midheaven house system where they say, that's it. This is not the same thing. This is not what we were doing years ago. This is not the vision I had. Things have changed on me. Maybe you went into a healing profession, a teaching profession, who knows what. And now it's not really doing what you intended it to do. It's not really accomplishing things. It's become stale. It's become routine. And then suddenly, bam, a change has to happen. Now, most people will say, okay, this has gotten a little bit routine, and they'll try to spice it up a little bit, try to deal with the situation, try to be realistic, try to bring something fresh into it. But with Uranus in the first house, with midheaven house system, a little bit is not enough. Just making things nice around the edges is not enough. There's this need to feel that our path, that your path, and anyone's path needs to be followed. It cannot be delayed. It's too urgent. It's too important. It's too exciting. It's what gives vibrancy and vitality to life. To put your enthusiasm into things and not just do them like a robot. This is the main thing. To be enthusiastic, have a spark of excitement in what your path before you is. That's the key. So Uranus in the first house with midheaven house systems is more sensitive to this than other people and responds to it more, and it affects their lives more than other people. Now, when Uranus is in the first house with Vertex house systems, it affects business relationships, associates, co-workers, supervisors, people who are that you are supervising. Any kind of association. It also has to do with places where you shop or services that you provide. And what's going on with Uranus in the first house with Vertex house system? There is a desire to have excitement, enthusiasm, something fresh. Uranus is always sensitive to things becoming routine, becoming, just unexciting, just a habit. You're just doing it out of habit. You're just going through the motions without any excitement. So Uranus in the first house wants to bring something fresh and exciting to the way that we cooperate in the world with other people to make a better world collectively. So what I have here on the slide, Uranus in the first house with Vertex house system, bringing fresh perspectives and new insights into business relationships, finding new ways to inspire workers. Oh, that's a big one. Uranus in the first house with Vertex house system wants our work, our service, our associations to be exciting. Be excited about who you're working with. Be excited about who your customers are. Be excited about where you go to shop, even the most mundane things. Where do you go grocery shopping? There should be something interesting about it, not just ordinary. And with Uranus, what's interesting doesn't have to be eccentric. It doesn't have to be weird. There's just a spark of life. That you go to the market where the people are farmers or gardeners, and they brought their produce that they've been growing, and it's their life. There's some excitement about it. There's engagement. They're not just taking something and delivering it without having some heart and soul and excitement in it. So the excitement of Uranus sometimes gets exaggerated. We think, oh, Uranus in the first house, you're going to blow up relationships. Everything's going to fall apart. You're going to, become a rebel. It's usually quite more subtle than that. It's the simple, everyday things. Do you go to the store, grocery store, and the people there don't really care and it's just a job? Or is there some, you might say, pride or excitement or feeling of life and vibrancy involved? A little bit of vibrancy, a little bit of personal engagement, a little bit of spontaneity, a little joke, a little cleverness. That's all that's needed to make Uranus in the first house and the Vertex house system happy. And without that, life becomes so dull and boring that the enthusiasm just is dried up. And it can dry up very gradually and without even realizing it. So last sentence here, removing old outdated ways of conducting commerce, businesses, and services of any kind. Okay, Neptune. Neptune in the first house with equal house system. A need to follow your dream. And just like I said with Uranus, this is not to be exaggerated. The way houses work is an attitude, and it's not like a caricature, like some kind of cartoon image or extreme thing, like you have Neptune in the first house, so you're a psychic or something. No, not usually. No relationship to being psychic. It's about an attitude. It's about a way of seeing life. That, that the dream that everyone has of something lofty, something exciting, is so important when you have Neptune in the first house that if you live a life that's based too much on security and stability, it's deadening. It's just draws the life out of you. So we all have to make compromises. We can't all just follow our dream. We have bills to pay. We have responsibilities. So we try to find a balance. But with Neptune in the first house, you have a big challenge. Because if you compromise too much, life becomes meaningless. Life ceases to have any purpose. So you've got to use some ingenuity, some cleverness. And this may sound funny for Neptune, some practical decision making, some strategizing to figure out how you can really make progress with your dream, with that lofty, exciting thing. You know, everybody has a dream. For some people, it's to be great in athletics, or to be able to play music professionally, or just to be in the healing profession and be a professional. It could be anything, whatever that excitement, that dream is for you. Neptune in the first house, you've got to find a way to bring it into manifestation to some extent, or you face the likelihood of a kind of depressive feeling, just a boredom. So that's Neptune in the first house. And again, you will see that if you have these planetary positions like Neptune in the first house with the equal house system, it plays a more critical and fundamental role for you than for other people. Now, what if Neptune is in the first house in the midheaven house system? Here, we see that the need to follow your dream is even more highlighted than with the ascendant, because it becomes involved with the very specific career path. It's very simple. Neptune in the first house with midheaven house system, your career, your position in life, your official capacity must incorporate your highest vision of what you would like to be. And you know, sometimes we even forget about what our dreams are that we had when we were younger. They seem like foolish fantasies as we adapt to life. You've just got to find out, go within yourself to what it is that really feels magical to you, and find a way to incorporate it into your life path. And last sentence here, be gentle with yourself if success eludes you, and take joy in the journey. Following your dream and bringing it to fulfillment is extremely difficult. Most people don't quite do it. Some people get lucky. So don't beat yourself up if you're not getting it, but take some satisfaction in every little bit of progress you make and expect it to happen. And over time, you will find that your life work, your career, will be your dream. And with Neptune in the first house with midheaven house systems, there's a force helping you to do this. You will get some good luck. You've got to take a little bit of risk and go for it. Now, Neptune in the first house with Vertex house systems gives high ideals and hopes for how people can work together to achieve shared goals. So this leads to a kind of sense of a perfected situation where everybody can be working together to achieve what we really have our highest hopes and dreams for. And what one person's highest hopes and dreams are can be something negative for someone else. So, for example, a lot of people have strong feelings about supporting a military in whatever country they live in. They take great pride and great deep feelings of enthusiasm, almost like a spiritual feeling about what their nation stands for, what it's bringing to the world. And this shared collective force and how we work together to achieve it becomes very, very important. Another person may feel like, well, wow, all of your patriotism and love of the military is actually destructive, and they don't see anything highly beautiful and Neptunian in it. But the astrology here is not about what is objectively true. It's about the person's personal experience, that they want to have this shared sense of a dream. And in many countries, for example, that shared sense of a dream is in the national holidays, is in the national tradition, and is in the way that our lives are structured and how different people perform different services within the context of the way things work in that area. And it's not always on a big national level, it's also on a community level. Always the emphasis with Vertex houses is how we share with other people, how we connect with other people, how we cooperate with other people to make life work. And Neptune means making a high ideal. It's this feeling that you're going to create a utopia where the people who are manufacturing things are excited about manufacturing. The people that are bringing it to people in the stores and other venues for people to purchase these things, everybody's engaged, and it's like a tag team race where one person passes the baton on to the other. This is what Neptune in the first house with Vertex house systems dreams of. A situation where one person hands it to the next person, all in a spirit of achieving a high goal and vision. Now, Pluto in that first house. If you have Pluto in the first house, using the equal house system, periodically there is a very strong, passionate expression, something that is transformative. What happens with Pluto in the first house is things build up and build up and build up. Different thoughts, concerns, interests, and then all of a sudden the person feels that they just have to do it. They just are going to transform their lives and bring all of this stuff that's been in the background to the foreground. So it could be any number of things. We often see it physically, like a person, as they get older, their work requirements and so on are so demanding that you get out of shape physically. You're just not as fit. You're a little overweight, etc. You get winded. You don't have that stamina. You can't jog as far as you used to, and it's just what happens. And Pluto in the first house just goes on for years like this, and all of a sudden that's it, and a transformation starts. It's something that's built up that we've been aware of, that this is the way life is. But Pluto lets it build up and build up until suddenly a big, compulsive, obsessive transformation begins to happen. So if you have Pluto in the first house using the equal house system, you can expect periodically this feeling to regenerate your life. Some big part of your life happens. And if you're in a close relationship with someone who has Pluto in the first house using the equal house system, be prepared that that person's going to have very deep, passionate feelings that they feel they need to address. Sometimes it has to do with relationships with family, a relationship with parents or brothers and sisters, that things need to be addressed and they need to be cleaned up and transformed. So it can get intense with Pluto. It always does. Okay, Pluto in the first house with midheaven house systems. So here, this periodic passion is what happens with Pluto. Person becomes very passionate, very, extreme, almost like fanatical. They become so motivated, immersed in something. It could be a political thing. It can be a religious thing, like a religious transformation. A feeling of great dedication and a feeling that something is very important to bring into life. Typical things are a change in philosophy or religion, a change in lifestyle and in personal health, things like this. And when it's Pluto in the first house with the midheaven house systems, it's related to what we're doing with our lives. So with Pluto in the first house, with midheaven house systems, almost always the person will periodically enroll in a training program, a fitness program, an educational program. They will enroll in learning a new language. You know, when you learn a new language, it changes you. You now become part of something different from what you had originally. You become part of a whole part of the world and a culture. This is Plutonic related to the midheaven, relating to who you are in the world and what's important to you. So deep passions related to achieving what's important in your path become periodic passionate obsessions. So Pluto in the first house, midheaven house system, periodically an obsession, a fascination grips the person, and they just immerse themselves so deeply into it to make their goals achievable and the new goals that have come into mind. And lastly, Pluto in the first house with Vertex house systems is that periodically the person feels that the way things are done, the way society is structured, is inadequate. They suddenly feel a need to transform things. Typically, when you have Pluto in the first house with Vertex house system, the person becomes very passionate about some political opinion, some political perspective, a political policy, or a social policy. They become, again, very passionate. With Pluto, it's like an obsession. So the way that the public transportation works, why don't we have more high-speed rail? Why this? Why that? All of a sudden they feel like this is crazy. Why are we working together in this way? We need to overhaul this. Why are we doing these things in an outdated way or a way that's just not right? Well, let's transform it. Let's build high-speed rail everywhere. Let's change the relationship between management and the workers. The person becomes very passionate that we need to raise the minimum wage. They become very, very strong about it. They start campaigning for it or bringing it up in conversation, or vice versa, that there should be no regulations of these kinds. Whatever the opinion is, it becomes a passion. It becomes a compulsive thought pattern about how we can transform the way that all of us work together and build a society that enables us to succeed as human beings. Social, economic, political beliefs, policies come to the attention of the person with great passion and enthusiasm. And sometimes it's just more personal, that in the workplace, maybe it's not generalized to the whole society, that the workplace in which you're in, that it's got to change, that we've got to treat people differently. Maybe there's not equal respect or opportunity or appreciation. It's got to be transformed. And with Pluto, it's a passion. It's not just a cerebral calculation. It's a feeling that goes deep, and there's, to some extent, a bit irrational. It's just a compulsive feeling, an obsession with some way in which we work together as a community, as a society, to overhaul it. So that's it, my friends. That's Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto in the houses. Again, planets in the houses are psychological. They're about a way in which we function. They do not affect your talents that much. It's not that if you have Uranus in the first house that you are an eccentric, wild, crazy person. It's a little more subtle than that. But it's very, very important in personal relationships. This is where you see the power of the houses, is in personal relationships, in marriages, for example. Any situation where people are living together. Because if you have Uranus in the first house, say with equal house system, this sensitivity to feeling controlled, to feeling like you need to do whatever you feel at this moment. Like maybe it's somebody who's dressed in a very plain way, doesn't wear anything decorative, doesn't wear any makeup or anything like that. And then all of a sudden they feel, oh, I'm going to change my style. I'm going to dress up more. They spend some money buying nicer clothes. They put on various adornments or makeup. And then a few years later, go back again. So this need to just suddenly redefine yourself. It creates tension. It creates problems with other people. Now, is the person an eccentric? Is the person would you characterize them as Uranian? No, they're not really Uranian. It's sort of a personal thing that comes up. I mean, it's Uranian a little bit, but it doesn't mean they're inventors, eccentrics, revolutionaries, anything like that. It's something about the way the person conducts themselves and relates to the world that comes to the foreground. And it becomes very important in personal relationships, is where you really see it. Okay, my friends, so the next video in this series of meanings of planets and houses, we will move on to the second house. Okay, thank you very much for listening. God bless. Namaste.